everybody? All right, thank you all for coming together. Thank the school and the administration for creating this type of space. Because not a lot of universities do, in fact, create these type of spaces where we can create a dialogue about race. And I say that to say, you know, race, and especially for black people in this country, right? We have never been allowed to, for one, learn about our history, and two, we have never been allowed to talk about not just our history, but also our experiences in the present. And so, you know, I'm from Baltimore. I never participated in a protest before Freddie Gray died. You know, I know about Tamir Rice dying. I know about Trayvon Martin being killed by George Zimmerman. You know, I knew about all of these things. But what actually got me, you know, we have this term in the movement called woke. I was in 8th grade. You know, I grew up on a different side. You know, you hear these stories about Freddie Gray grew up in the projects of Sandtown, Winchester, where there's poverty. You know, I grew up on the other side of Baltimore. I'm an artist, so I have this line that I say where it's, Mr. White Man, I didn't know Freddie. Leave it up to you, I could have been Freddie. And that's the scary part, because we're from two different worlds, but you couldn't tell us apart. I grew up really privileged. I grew up in Jack and Jill of America. Anybody know what Jack and Jill of America is? It's basically for bougie black people to hang around other bougie black people to say that they hung around black people. And that's what I did throughout high school. But it also, you know, I got called a nigger in 8th grade for the first time by 4 white students at the private school that I went to. I went home and I got suspended for school because of the way I reacted. No punishment was handed down to those students. So I went home and I talked to my parents. Both of my parents are black. Both of my parents, they just turned 40, so they're relatively young. And I said, why didn't you all tell me that I wasn't going to, that this would happen to me now? Why didn't you all prepare me for this? And you know, they thought by sending us to private school, by homeschooling us and then sending us to private school, that we would be sheltered with privilege, that we would never experience racism. And it failed us. That ideology failed us. So I immediately went back to public school, got on the debate team. I was, you know, I've always had a loud mouth. I was homeschooled from 1st to 4th grade, so I was, only authority I ever respected was my father, and it wasn't because like he was authoritarian, it was more like he was like 6'3", big and black, and I was like, my anti-blackness was scared of him. And so they tried to like diagnose me with oppositional defiance disorder and put me in special ed, whatever that means, right? So 9th grade, I was about to get kicked out of school for like telling the teacher, like, you're teaching us about Abraham Lincoln, he was a racist, slavery never ended because of him. And so I was about to get expelled from public school. So then I was about to be without any type of schooling, right? And the school director comes to me and she says, either you join the debate team or I'm going to expel you. And so I joined the debate team. So from 5th grade to 12th grade, I went to a different school every year. And debate kind of saved my life. I wound up getting a full scholarship for college through the debate team and wound up going to UTSA for 1 year. Where we wouldn't normally talk about, like, me and my partner wouldn't talk about, like, United States federal government should substantially increase dividends for corporations. No, we would be like, fuck that. Like, niggas in the hood is dying. We need to talk about creating education and talk about creating that space, because once we leave these rooms, United States federal government isn't going to do anything but put targets on our back. So we would rap the entire time. And we would talk the way we would talk in barbershops, because we would say that academia should not be just held in a space where a doctor, somebody with a doctorate is talking and giving you information, but you can grasp information from everyday lived experiences if you're bold enough to tell those stories. So that's kind of what led me to tell my story, or to take space back in Baltimore when we protested for Freddie Gray. You know, I lost my scholarship. I went back home to Baltimore, and you know, in 2013, I started a mentoring program with 3 of my childhood friends. We went to the lowest, you know, the lowest ranking middle school in Baltimore City called Booker T. Washington Middle School, right? It's kind of funny that the lowest ranking middle school would be named after one of the highly as held black intellects. But we took the worst 25 performing males and we created a program called Brothers in Action Incorporated. And we mentored these males. We provided big brothership, so in some parts fatherhood. You know, I'm 21, so I'm not old enough to be anybody's mister, barely old enough to be someone's father, but you know, we did that because these little kids, these 14-year-old kids were raising their 3 and 4 different siblings because their mother was strung out on drugs, their father had a long conviction, was never around, and we mentored them. We took them to the White House. We taught them how to tie a tie, how to do their homework, how to communicate with each other effectively, and we made a difference and an impact on their lives. You know, the program was highly successful. Like I said, they graduated, they had different experiences and a different type of role model. But it doesn't necessarily save you from the streets or the living conditions that they lived in altogether. Since 2013, 4 of my students have died. Just 2 weeks ago, one of my students, a 16-year-old kid named Darius, got shot in the head at a music video shoot. But I can know that I can keep going with this movement, knowing that the impact that I made as an individual, knowing that Darius is one of the few young black men from Baltimore City who was able to go to the White House because 4 just, you know, 21-year-olds putting the money out of their pockets. Well, they're older than me, I'm young. But, you know, they were school teachers, but just the money out of our pockets, invested into this program, and we invested into a life that'll have a greater spillover effect. So I remember when Freddie Gray died, I'm watching it on TV, I'm working at a hotel, and I was a doorman, so I relied on tips. And so what I was really angry was that the media was instilling fear of black people into white tourists, which was messing up my money. So, you know, people were like, you know, I remember that Saturday when they're down at the Orioles game, and they're like, you know, there's a riot breaking out at the Orioles Stadium, and they're locking fans inside. The whole downtown Baltimore's on shutdown. And so people are pointing on TV, and they're like, look at this thug. And I'm like, nah, that's actually Antoine. And he's not even built like that. Like, his grandmother probably calling him right now, telling him to get his ass off that police car. and so they like, but this is how small Baltimore was, and this was how much of one section was actually under a siege. And it was peaceful protest that was sparked by racist baseball fans yelling nigger and throwing beer bottles and things that wasn't talked about on the media. And so I remember on that Monday that happened, you know, there weren't supposed to be any protests. In fact, what happened instead was that the police showed up to Frederick Douglass High School at 11 a.m. in riot gear outside of Mondawmin Mall, and they attacked the high school students, and that's what led to the violence. So that Tuesday, when I confront Geraldo, you know, we saw the police cars, we saw the CVS burning. Penn North looked like Penn North, you know, abandoned buildings, poverty, drug-infested neighborhood, 20 years before I was ever born, since King died. And nobody ever talked about that until that time when the CVS, it took a corporate America building burning, right? A corporate store burning before people to care about the lives of poor black people. And that's when I basically confronted Geraldo, and I didn't know who Geraldo was. He was just some like small dude with like a big mustache, and he was being annoying. Like, but apparently that's what he does. And so I just confronted him, but I didn't know who he was. I didn't even care. It was just the fact that in that moment, in that space, a story needed to be told, and the story that the media was telling wasn't the story that was actually transparent. And I didn't realize what was happening at the time or what, how it would explode. But I walked into the barbershop the next day, and they said, yo, you on World Star. And then life for me has changed ever since. But since then, I've realized that not only am I Trayvon Martin, but that my little brother is Tamir Rice, my sister is Sandra Bland, and that my homeboy is Freddie Gray. So any of us that look like me, anybody from Baltimore City, right, we can all become victims of police brutality, whether it be through a traffic stop, whether it be through us playing just cops and robbers in the park. The innocence of being black is guilty under white supremacy in this white institution in which we are is embedded inside of all of us. I hung out with Cornel West over this summer, and we were in Chicago, and he told an audience of 4,000 white preachers, we were at the Justice Conference, and he told them, he said, I see a lot of anti-blackness inside of myself, so I know y'all have a lot of work to do. And now think about that, right? I write for, you know, because of all of this happening now, I now have a chance. I write for Abernathy Magazine, UrbanCusp.com, and Mashable.com. I wrote an article on Mashable.com that talked about the anti-blackness inside of all of us is what really killed Freddie Gray. Because there was 3 white officers who had no idea about, you know, no idea what it's like to be poor and black in America, had no idea what it was like to be poor, black, and privileged in America. But they are the ones who made eye contact with Freddie Gray, and Freddie Gray had the natural instinct as which so many black people have in this country, and that's when you see the police, you immediately run. And that's an instinct I have. I've been arrested, you know, several times now for protesting in Baltimore and around the country that automatically my reaction is to run. But you know that the anti-blackness is what really killed Freddie Gray, and no one talks about it. We don't even admit that anti-blackness is something that's embedded inside of all of us, whether it be the clutch purse syndrome, whether it be the fear of dark-skinned males, or whether it be the you know, just the stereotypical perceptions we have of individuals. We all have to deal with that as a society. But addressing white supremacy and challenging the movement and stepping up and having institutions invest in programs that work on that train of thought is something that will get us forward. And I think that's the beautiful part about this movement, is that you literally have so many young people, not in college spaces like these, because this is a very big privilege that a lot of people from Baltimore City, a lot of people from Chicago, Houston, a lot of people don't have access to this type of privilege because they don't have access to school. They have to worry about living and surviving for their siblings every day. And that's why drugs get sold on corners and you see so many young kids with guns. And I think about, you know, but those people are the people that were out there protesting, right? Black Lives Matter is more than just Twitter. It's the thousands and hundreds of thousands of young people who have always been disengaged with the system that showed up to protest in response to the deaths of police brutality and said, this has happened to us, we are the victims that lived, and we are here to create change and use and make sure that our voices are heard. And I use an acronym for VOICES. It's vocalizing our intelligence and creating effective solutions. And I think if all of us use our voices as young individuals inside of this society, it has a greater impact than us just sitting around and being silent about it.